Brazil didn't lose their invincibility in 2014, not in the 7-1, not in the penalties against Croatia, not even in Berlin in 2006. Those were symptoms, not the disease. The real shift happened slowly, across 20 years, when opponents stopped adjusting to Brazil, and Brazil started adjusting to them. That is the quiet difference between being feared and being prepared for. In 2002, Brazil walked into the World Cup as inevitability. By 2022, they walked in as contenders. That sounds similar. It isn't. Because somewhere between Yokohama and Al Rayyan, something fundamental changed. Brazil were no longer the standard that defined tournaments. They became another team trying to survive them. And once that happens, invincibility isn't lost loudly. It fades until one day you realize it's already gone. This was the night Brazil proved genius could be protected, not just unleashed. For decades, the World Cup felt like Brazil's natural environment. Pelé at 17, the most fluid team the tournament had ever seen, tactical discipline over romance, but still romantic enough to feel untouchable. Even defeat never felt permanent, it felt temporary, correctable, like the next tournament would restore hierarchy by default. By the time the 2002 tournament arrived in Korea and Japan, Brazil were not stable. They had struggled through qualification and lost 6 matches in CONMEBOL qualifying, their worst campaign up to that point. They changed managers before Luiz Felipe Scolari imposed structure, but instability has always been part of Brazil's cycle. The assumption remained the same. Once the World Cup begins, hierarchy returns. 30 June 2002, International Stadium, Yokohama, Brazil 2-0 Germany. The first goal came from pressure. Rivaldo struck low, Oliver Kahn parried, Ronaldo reacted. The second was cleaner, a composed finish across goal after a measured build-up. 8 goals in the tournament. Golden Boot. 7 wins from 7. 18 goals scored, 4 conceded. But the numbers alone don't explain the weight of that night. Scolari did not build a nostalgic Brazil. He built a protected one. A back three of Lucio, Edmilson, and Roca Jr. reduced exposure. Cafu and Roberto Carlos provided width without sacrificing structure. Gilberto Silva screened transitions with positional discipline. Rivaldo and Ronaldinho operated in half spaces, not chaos. Ronaldo finished movements, not fantasies. It was talent framed inside balance. That detail reinforced something powerful. Brazil didn't just win because of improvisation. They won because improvisation could be contained inside a system when required. After the disappointment of 1998 and the turbulence of qualification, Openta felt like restoration. Not surprise, not overachievement. Restoration. The belief hardened, structural flaws could exist, tactical gaps could appear, preparation could be uneven, but in decisive moments, Brazil's quality would rise above structure. That conviction would travel into every World Cup that followed, and it would take 20 years to understand how misleading it was. Because the longer you trust genius to rescue you, the less urgency you feel to protect it when the game changes. This was the first time Brazil's brilliance looked manageable. After 2002, Brazil didn't just win a World Cup. They won the argument about how football should feel. Even when structure appeared, flair remained the headline. The global conversation wasn't about spacing or pressing triggers. It was about freedom. Between 2003 and 2005, Brazil's attack reinforced the illusion. They won the 2004 Copa America. They dominated the 2005 Confederations Cup, beating Argentina 4-1 in the final. Adriano was unstoppable. Ronaldinho was untouchable. Kaká was accelerating into his prime. By the time Germany hosted the 2006 World Cup, the question wasn't whether Brazil would compete. It was whether anyone could survive them. The Quadrado Mágico was marketed as evolution, more creativity, more inevitability. But inevitability only works when the rest of the structure absorbs the cost of freedom. 1 July 2006, quarterfinal, Frankfurt, Brazil, 0-1, France. Thierry Henry scored in the 57th minute, but the goal wasn't the story. Zinedine Zidane controlled everything around the moment. France didn't press wildly, they compressed. Central lanes were narrowed, transitions were protected, and Brazil were invited to circulate the ball without consequence. Brazil had possession, France had balance. The 4 attackers rarely defended as a synchronized unit. Fullbacks advanced without rehearsed rest defense. Recovery runs stretched the shape. Carlos Alberto Pereira's team were not chaotic, they were exposed. For the first time in the modern era, Brazil's talent density did not translate into territorial authority. France did not fear Brazil's rhythm, they disrupted it. It wasn't collapse, it wasn't humiliation, it was erosion. Yokohama proved talent framed correctly could win everything. Berlin revealed something more uncomfortable. Talent without structural precision could be managed. Brazil were still brilliant, but for the first time, brilliance looked containable. Once containment becomes possible, opponents stop chasing miracles and start building plans. This was the moment Brazil stopped being unlucky and started being readable. Brazil hosted the 2014 World Cup carrying more than ambition. They carried repair. Since 2006, elimination had felt technical. Since 2010, it had felt emotional. Luis Felipe Scolari returned with the same promise as 2002, unity over chaos. Brazil won the 2013 Confederations Cup, beating Spain 3-0 at the Maracanã. Fred pressed high, Neymar scored, the crowd believed again. But belief is not structure. 8 July 2014, Mineirão. Brazil 1-7 Germany. 5 goals in 18 minutes. Absences did not create collapse. Structural fragility did. Both fullbacks advanced without synchronized cover. The midfield was pulled apart by Germany's rotation. Toni Kroos received between lines without pressure. Müller and Klose attacked blindside channels with rehearsed timing. Germany didn't counter wildly. They executed patterns. This wasn't individual genius overwhelming Brazil. It was collective structure overwhelming emotional urgency. Brazil reacted. Germany anticipated. The Brazilian press named it Mineiraço, echoing 1950. But the deeper damage was not national trauma. It was global reframing. Brazil were no longer the reference point others chased. They were vulnerable to systems built with precision. The humiliation lasted one night. The tactical implication lasted far longer. For the first time in modern World Cup history, Brazil did not look unlucky. They looked outmatched. And once that image entered global memory, it never fully disappeared. After 2014, Brazil didn't chase romance, they chased control. Here's the twist. Brazil fixed chaos, but they didn't restore inevitability. After 2014, Brazil did not chase romance, they chased stability. In June 2016, after elimination to Peru in the Copa America Centenario group stage, the CBF appointed Tite. He inherited a squad emotionally shaken and tactically inconsistent. His first change was not personnel, it was spacing. The midfield tightened, fullbacks advanced with clearer coverage, Casemiro became non-negotiable, screening central lanes, timing tackles, protecting second balls. Brazil qualified for the 2018 World Cup comfortably. In Russia, they conceded only 1 goal in the group stage. A late header from Steven Zuber for Switzerland. Structure had returned. Quarterfinal 6 July 2018, Kazan Arena, Brazil, 1-2 Belgium. The opening goal came from a corner, Fernandinho's own goal under pressure. The second came in transition. Kevin De Bruyne drove centrally after Belgium bypassed Brazil's first line. The finish was precise. The moment was prepared. Fernandinho stepped deeper. Paulinho pushed higher. The distances stretched. Brazil ended the match with 26 shots, 9 on target. Thibaut Courtois produced one of the tournament's defining saves from Neymar in stoppage time. Brazil had volume. Belgium had timing. In long stretches, Brazil controlled territory, but when transition moments appeared, Belgium dictated them. Tite had eliminated chaos, but he had not restored inevitability. European sides no longer needed to dominate Brazil for 90 minutes. They only needed to survive and wait for imbalance. Brazil were organized, they were disciplined, but they were no longer feared as a force that bends matches toward destiny. The aura had not vanished, it had thinned. And when aura thins, opponents don't rush you, they manage you. This was the night control existed, but management failed at the one-moment tournament football punishes. Qatar 2022 began with confidence. Brazil topped Group G and dismantled South Korea 4-1 in the round of 16. The front line flowed, the bench celebrated, belief felt justified. Quarterfinal, 9 December 2022, Education City Stadium. Brazil 1-1 Croatia. Croatia win on penalties. For 90 minutes, Croatia struggled to create. Brazil controlled territory and accumulated chances, though without the clarity of the Korea match. Extra time changed the emotional temperature. 105 plus 1 minute, Neymar combined with Rodrigo and Paquetá rounded Livakovic and finished Brazil led. In knockout football, that is the moment to compress space, reduce risk, force the opponent to chase without corridors. Instead, Brazil expanded. At 117 minutes, Croatia countered. Oršić drove down the left. Petkovic received centrally. His shot deflected off Marquinhos and beat Alisson, Croatia's first shot on target of the match. The equalizer did not come from sustained pressure. It came from exposure. Brazil had committed numbers forward after taking the lead. The rest structure narrowed. This was not a gap in technique. It was a gap in management. On penalties, Croatia were composed. Rodrigo missed. Marquinhos struck the post. Elimination followed. The world did not question Brazil's talent. It questioned their control of decisive phases. In modern tournaments, elite teams protect leads before they celebrate them. Brazil celebrated first. The consequence was immediate. When the same type of ending repeats across generations, it stops being bad luck. It becomes a pattern. This is where invincibility quietly disappeared. From 2006 to 2022, Brazil were eliminated 5 times by European teams. Different coaches, different squads, same outcome. In 2010, the Netherlands narrowed space and flipped the match in 12 minutes. In 2014, Germany imposed positional structure. In 2018, Belgium protected central lanes and attacked transitions. In 2022, Croatia reduced the match to endurance. Across all 5 eliminations, one trend is visible. European teams controlled tempo. They compressed defensive spacing. They built rest defense structures anticipating Brazil's forward surges. Brazil, meanwhile, continued to produce elite talent. Neymar, Thiago Silva, Alisson, Casemiro, Vinicius Jr. The individual level never collapsed. But knockout football in the modern era is not decided by talent density, it is decided by structural stability under emotional stress. European teams no longer entered matches asking, "How do we survive Brazil?" They asked, "How do we manage them?" That difference is decisive. For decades, Brazil dictated rhythm, and others adjusted. From 2006 onward, Europe imposed frameworks and Brazil reacted inside them. Once opponents stop fearing unpredictability and start preparing for it, the aura changes. And aura in tournament football is leverage. When that leverage disappears, invincibility does not shatter. It dissolves, quietly. Because the World Cup doesn't need you to collapse to remove your crown, it only needs enough evidence that you can be managed. World Cups do not change in one night. They reveal what has been forming quietly. 2002 talent corrected structural fragility. Scolari protected space and released brilliance. The system framed the genius. 2006 structure defeated talent. France compressed zones. Brazil circulated without incision. 2014 emotional urgency exposed systemic weakness. Germany did not overwhelm Brazil with inspiration. They dismantled them with coordination. 2018 discipline restored defensive stability, but Belgium proved stability is not the same as dominance. 2022 control existed, but risk management failed when it mattered most. Across 20 years, Brazil did not lose quality. They exported it to Europe's elite clubs. They fielded Ballon d'Or candidates. They produced Champions League winners. What disappeared was inevitability. There was a time when the World Cup bracket bent psychologically around Brazil. Opponents adjusted tempo, opponents respected rhythm, opponents feared escalation. Now Brazil enter tournaments as one of several contenders. Not the gravitational center, they prepare for structured European control, they manage transitional caution, they calculate. That is not weakness, it is normalization. Invincibility does not vanish through humiliation alone. It erodes through recurring evidence. 5 eliminations, 5 structural lessons, 1 consistent outcome. Between Yokohama in 2002 and Al Rayyan in 2022, Brazil did not fall. They became beatable. And once a team becomes beatable often enough, invincibility stops being expectation. It becomes memory.